or the creation Marvel style in that. No, not actually. That's not right because I did loose pencils. I did very loose, I think. And then Ted,
I finished them. No, then did you? I forget how we did it. Then did you actually script it? You did script it, right? Or did we script it together? I don't remember.
You know what? Well, I'm very lazy. I don't write scripts. I just do the art. And on your case, after you and me did the art, I think I got those pages. I scanned them, and then I would literally just write the dialogue. Page by page. Okay, first panel, blah blah blah. And I write the whole. Yeah, I literally create the word balloon and the dialogue at the same time. And then after I write the whole book, and then go back. Okay, now it's you tweak it, make it sound flow better. And it's kind of like the way Stan Lee and Kirby and Ditko and all the other artists work, where Stan would basically give them a plot. The artist would go and create the whole story of artwork. They would draw everything out and give like Stan 20 pages to kind of figure out. Okay, now write the dialogue, and then that's what Stan would do. So, and that's how I've always been working. Believe it or not, I've never written a script.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when I did Billy Cole, that was that first story.
Yeah. First comic.
I remember it was like the thing that I pitched to the company was maybe 14 pages or something. So I had to fill up 28 pages, and I remember trying to figure out like how to work it, and it was weird. I think I did like a couple pages, and I liked them, and then I started working like backwards and forwards, like from that middle moment.
Right.
And so that was really interesting. So that kind of showed me that I don't necessarily have to go, chronologically in terms of storytelling. Sometimes, you can think of a moment that's like an integral moment, and then expand forward and backwards from there. So you can think of the middle and then figure out what the beginning is or figure out what the ending is. But that's what's neat about making comics is, you can, any way you get it done, it works. So it's really cool.
Yeah. And, speaking of that, you reminded me of something I wanted to tell you earlier. Just the great thing about comics. One thing that's great about comics, as opposed to working in a film or on TV, cartoon. You mentioned earlier you can do your comic book any size, any shape. 8.5 by 11, this and that, micro, mini, elongated, giant size, magazine size, and it can kind of influence your story. But a guy making a movie. Well, he's pretty much, he knows the proportion of the screen, whether it's shown on the theater or shown on DVD or on TV. So, there's great things about film, obviously. I think we all love great film or good movies and cheesy movies. But, we as artists working in comics, we could decide from the beginning, hey, my comic is going to be shaped this way. It's pretty much always a square rectangle. But that's what's neat about the medium. Like you said, I can decide what the final format size of my project will be to fit this story. You know
what else? That kind of reminded me too of how like in film, like in Matrix, they'd started doing that rotational thing. Like where they would jump and the camera rotates around them. They kind of basically expand like a moment into a long sequence.
Right.
That's just pure comic. I mean, the Matrix is like a comic book movie, really. The angles and everything. And it always reminded me of like, I guess Steranko did it, but I really remember like Paul Galassi would do a lot of that kind of stuff. Where he would expand a moment. I mean, that's like, how you're saying we're in full control of the storytelling, and that's true. I mean, like in comics, you can cover like 6 years in one panel, or you can cover like one moment can take like 5 pages, and I can still see like some pages from Galassi when he would do a Master of Kung Fu. He would do like a kick, and or there was this issue where Shang-Chi like kicks this panther or this lion or something that's gonna like eat a baby, and like he breaks down the kick into all these panels. And it's just so cool that, he can expand that moment because that moment's, it's very exciting. And just having the power to expand a moment that long or to, condense a moment, I mean, you can play with it so much. And, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine actually just earlier today, and we're talking about the comic books nowadays. And a lot of times people seem to be approaching comic book storytelling like movies. So they're kind of they're telling the story, but in movie time with movie angles. It almost looks like a live action storyboard or something, which is cool, but it's not really utilizing. I mean, there's so much that people can do with the comic book format.
Well, you brought up excellent point. The way you brought it up, it's funny because first you mentioned the Wachowski brothers, the directors of Matrix, how they used they kind of created like a cinematic comic, and then you mentioned Paul Gulacy, excellent artist, and then his great storytelling, and he used to say all the time, with good cause. It's like, hey, I am very heavily influenced by cinema and cinema storytelling, so he incorporated it in his storytelling. But the difference between Gulacy and a lot of these new people, these new people, I'm not going to mention names of comics or companies. That's not what this show's about. But, we can disagree with techniques. They're trying to make literally movies on paper or pitches on paper, which is terrible. But, when they start describing their comic panels as, I'm doing a widescreen summer movie, I think that's so dumb because, it's nothing to use a technique or an aesthetic that maybe a film director does. But, don't convince me that you're making a Bruckheimer popcorn summer movie, dude. It's a comic book. There's nothing wrong that it's just, quote-unquote, just a comic. Don't think you have to try to be a movie on paper. Yeah,
and, the other thing, too, is, just the actual physical design, the composition of the page. I mean, they're interesting, I guess, but, I'm thinking about the premiere issue of Deathlock. I forget. I think that was in Astonishing Tales or something. But the Deathlock one that, and that's like one of my most favorite characters ever. Anyway.
Oh yeah. Look,
it was just great. And Rich Buckler, he created it, and it was just so cool. Like he would talk to his computer self. So he had the split personality going. But anyway. There's some panel, there's some composition, just basically panel compositions that are so exciting. It's not just like the 6-panel grid. Kirby did 6-panel grid. He did a great job. And that was amazing. He mastered that. But then guys like Steranko, Rich Buckler, Gulacy, they would really push it and do like maybe 14 panels on a page sometimes, breaking it up and. Different, and the panels are different shapes and sizes, and that's it was just very exciting to just look at the panels, and the panels are kind of going to be creating rhythm in themselves too. So you don't see that maybe as much as they used to do it before, nowadays.
Justin 3000 is commenting, along this whole movie thread line we're talking about. He wrote on the chat, I go to the movies for the movies. I read comics because they give me something movies don't. I mean, exactly.
That's a good point. It's like, if you start making comic books like movies, then, a comic book can never be as good as a movie in the sense that, movies move.
Yeah, and the audio, too, the audio and the movement, Yeah,
and in the same vein, it's like, if you start using photo reference for actors, as comic book characters.
Yeah.
For one thing, it's nice, but at the same time, if you're like locked to these photo references, then the drawings might tend to start looking more stiff. They might just look like kind of, like stills or something. You kind of lose the life of the drawing sometimes when you're so locked to the photo references.
Right. I want you to comment a little bit about our Zombie comic we got coming up. But you know what? But since right now we're on the storytelling.
What else? I mean, it's getting late too. It's like almost 7:00.
You know what? Jimmy Lujan called it when he told me a few days ago. Your show says it's going for an hour, but it's going to go over an hour. And Jimmy is right. No, we're cool, Ted. We can. Yeah, there's no time. I mean, there's a 2-hour time limit. We're not going to go that long, but I think it should be safe to go another 15, 20 minutes if that's cool to everybody.
Oh, okay, cool.
I wanted to see if we can get Joshua Kemble here on the call. He's also a cartoonist, a Zurich Award winner.
Actually, Javier, I hate to say this. But I gotta get